Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I want to preview this session for you and give you a nice intro, but I almost don't know what to say about this one. I played 10-25-50 at the WSOP Kings Lounge 2 nights ago, and the game was so tense, so heated, and almost everyone was 15K effective that it resulted in some very, very strange pots. And there's also one hand that you really have to stick around for where it should have been something like a 35K to 40K pot, but a man ended up angling himself to his own benefit later on. I don't know. You have to see it to believe it. Hope you enjoy the hands.
Jumping straight into the action here, we see a raise on the button to $125 over the $50 straddle. We make the call in the small blind with the 10-8 of spades, heads up to a flop. We immediately get good news from the poker gods that we will be running great this session as the flop comes Jack 9-7 rainbow. Back to the button, who makes it $200. We're going to go ahead and put in a raise here with our straight because we unblock all of these sets, 2 pair and 1 pair hands that can continue. We raise to $600 and the button snap folds. Not the perfect outcome, but we won the pot. In this next hand, we pick up somewhat in the middle of the pre-flop action. There was an open in the hijack to $125 over the $50 straddle, and I make the call with ace-5 of hearts in the cutoff. The small blind then 3-bet to $600, and the $50 straddle cold called the 3-bet. The original raiser in the hijack folds and actions back to us. And the ace-5 of hearts is definitely a strong enough hand here, 3 ways in position to peel, so we put the call in. We flop pretty sweet here, 3 ways, giving us nut flush draw, middle pair, and the 3 is really nice to interact with as well. Granted, this looks like the kind of board where my hand wants to put a lot of money in, but that's not necessarily true. Basically, I want to check here for a few reasons. The first reason is I want to keep in a lot of the small blinds ace X that I'm now dominating. Imagine a world where we get to turn an ace and cooler ace, king, ace, queen, ace, jack, those kinds of hands. I also get check raised a lot on this board texture, especially 3 ways, and I'm not loving that spot even with this massive of a draw, because imagine calling this big check raise and then bricking turn and having to call another massive bet on the turn, looking for a heart, a 5, 2 pair kind of hand. It's a pretty ugly spot, so I think checking here makes a lot of sense. Turn comes the Jack of Spades, and it's one of the worst cards that we could really see, as our opponents are going to have a Jack X kind of hand pretty often. They also will have turned any number of straight draws, which we have in pretty bad shape, but the equities run close enough that it's just not a nice spot to be in 3 ways. Especially when the 3-better in the small blind makes it $900, about a half-size bet into 2 people. It's a pretty strong signal that he's turned something like a jack or has an overpair to this board, maybe a hand even as strong as jack 10, 10s, jacks, that we are pretty crushed by. The straddle gets out of the way, and we need roughly 24 to 25% equity for this to be a profitable call, provided that our ace 2 pair and our 5 quote-unquote trip draw are both live in addition to our flush draw. Then we have 28% equity roughly, so we are getting the right price to make this call, and we go ahead and make the call. We do get the brick 6 of clubs river, and our opponent puts out a bet of about 75% of the pot of $2,700. We have about $7,400 behind, so this would actually have been a really sweet spot to bluff, but I didn't see it in game. The reason I didn't see it is because it isn't a natural or intuitive bluff. However, my opponent's bluffs will not contain the ace of hearts, so having the ace of hearts is actually okay here, and it's pretty nice to block aces. The 5 is really key to the bluff here, because my value hands are hands like 5s, 3s and 10s. So my bluff should interact with those hands. Having a 5 here does that well and block his value. It's really great, again, to block aces here. So even though it's not always the best idea to bluff a missed flush draw because it seems obvious, in this case, I have one of the best candidates to bluff with. Sadly, I didn't find that line in game and we lose this pot to ace jack. Nice hand. Prepare yourself for this next hand because it is absolutely the strangest position I've ever been in pre-flop or post-flop, or maybe just in poker, ever. Context time. There was a man at the game who seemed very inebriated, and his actions were reflecting that inebriation. Given that context, this is the hand. The potentially inebriated man makes it $300 over the $50 straddle. I look down at pocket kings and 3-bet to $1,200. I go to a larger size here than I probably typically would because my hand wants to play for stacks, and if the inebriated man is going to 6x under the gun, then I believe him to be inelastic with sizing, and I expect him to call basically any raise size. If he's going to call a small one, I think he'll call a large one. Straddle, who is a very capable reg, now makes it $27.50 as a cold 4-bet from the $50 straddle. This is a very strong move from the straddle, given even the potential inebriation factor, if you will. It is still a 3-bet to an EP open and a 4-bet out of position. So we have very, very narrow ranges here. In theory, yes, there are some hands he can look at and try a sick low frequency bluff here, but in game and in this spot, there's just almost no way that anyone is taking this spot. Action is back on the potentially inebriated initial raiser, and this is when this hand starts to go completely sideways. When he says this.
Two hands that beat me here.
He's looking at me. He's looking at you like, what do you want from me?
He just said his hand.
I love this hand.
Did you hear? Okay.
And after saying that, he flats the 4-bet. Well, this is weird. My hand absolutely wants to be all in. And yes, sometimes we're going to run into aces, and that's life. However, I hesitated for a while before being all in because this is a very, very uncomfortable dynamic, and this is just not the way I want to be winning poker hands. It's not fun for me. I don't enjoy any part of the game that involves these extracurricular aspects. And I want to avoid even the appearance that I could be using this information that has been exposed to my benefit to get my opponent to fold what might be a better hand. Regardless of the exposed information, my shove here would put all of his hands except for aces in jail. But because of the exposed information, there's a potential that he could make a bad call because of just some deep meta that I might be using King Jack to get him to fold a better hand or something like that. Given all of that, I still stick to my original game plan and I announce that I'm all in. I have a total of $8,600 roughly in my stack. So this is a big shove, and the pot's already ballooned to nearly $15,000, and there are still 2 players to act. The cold four better looks visibly ill at this jam, and he's probably thinking some of the thoughts that I just illustrated a moment ago.
But it makes me feel uncomfortable that he said it, and now it looks like I have advantage, just to be clear. Just trying to be, I don't know. Just trying to be honest.
What did you eat for breakfast? 'Cause I want to know how you dealt this. I'm going to take it for a while. I gotta get
Take your time.
I gotta get something.
I can't say too much because we're three ways, but I'm just trying to be honest.
Did you read the first French Italian blog?
Yeah.
No? No?
It's up to you, man. You told me what your hand is, and I went all in. It's up to you what you want to do. I'm trying to be honest with you.
Last call, Zach R. 5, 10, 25, 5 card PLO. Zach R. Last call, 5, 10, 25, 5 card PLO.
6, 7, 85, 86, 50.
The good news is you will see it on the vlog or right now, whatever you want.
Right now.
Right, I will show you. Yeah, I will show. Yeah, it's a very weird hand. I will show. And anyway, they saw my hand, so I must show. Yeah, it's correct. I'm doing everything I can other than telling you to fold your hand, man. I'm doing everything I can. Like,
I gotta look at my hand too, right?
I'm doing what I can.
The gentleman tanked for so long that I ended up just saying this.
Yeah. Can I just show him my cards so he can fold, to be honest? King. Please fold or unless you want 2 outs, it's okay, whatever you like.
Why couldn't we just do that before?
I didn't know I was allowed. I will show you.
At this point, after almost 8 minutes in this hand, I just wanted it to be over. It was really uncomfortable. It was an ugly spot. Like, I'm supposed to win probably a pretty huge pot here, and it's a real shame it went down this way, but I'm not comfortable feeling like I'm taking advantage of people, and that's what this started to feel like. Because he was trying to convince himself, probably much in the same way that the cold four better was, that I might just be making a play here given the exposed info. And that is what set this hand completely off the rails. So that's why I exposed my cards. That's why I did all that I could to tell the four better, like, you're not good here if you didn't snap. I don't love that I missed out on, like, very real money here. Like, this was probably supposed to be a 25K pot shipped my way, but I would hope that in a similar situation that someone might behave the same way towards me, and that's all I can ask for. Also, on the bright side, like, I did get to take down a massive pot uncontested, and I did not have to run equities against what was probably ace king and queens, which is a pretty massive win. To never encounter anything even close to that hand again. Let's move on to something more normal. I wanted to get up and go take a walk after that pretty stressful and strange situation with the king's hand, but I was dealt in the very next hand, as is standard in a time rake game, and I look down at jacks. So, of course, I open EP, I get 3-bet next to act, and this is where we pick up the action. Flop comes king, king, jack, so we flop a boat here in a 3-bet pot. We have 2 hearts on the board, so there are lots of possibilities for hands that we could get paid by. However, we will not be leading on this kind of board texture as it favors the 3-better. We go ahead and check it over to him. He continues basically with range here to 250. We make the call. The turn comes the 6 of diamonds, double flush draw. We snap check it over again because this is also not a card that we're interested in leading on. He checks back and we are off to the river, which is the 4 of hearts. We snap check it over one more time. It is pretty easy for him to have value hands here. It's equally easy for him to have complete air that wants me to fold something like 8s or 9s with a pretty sizable river bet. So don't want to play any leads on this board. Want to hope that he either has complete air that must bluff this river, or that he has a pretty strong hand like a rivered flush, which he could have plenty of. 10, 9 of hearts, for example, 7, 8 of hearts, 6, 5, those kinds of hands could absolutely have made flushes on this river. And then his total air balls would be like ace 10-0 with the 10 of hearts, ace 10-0 with the ace of hearts, and all those Broadway gut shot combos on the flop that just completely whiffed the rest of the board. When he goes 700 into about 1500, this is absolutely a value size. This should be music to our ears. It's the easiest check raise spot of all time. However, I don't have a good reason for why I did this. I just had an automatic motor response to call, and unfortunately, our opponent had river to flush, and we missed out on what would probably have been another $1,200 or $1,300 of value had we raised 3x his bet. Again, no idea why I did this. Probably was still distracted from the previous hand, and my automatic motor functions just kicked in of like, okay, have boat, must call. Looks like he was able to lose the minimum, and I was able to win the minimum. After a while, the table decided to play an entire orbit of double board bomb pots when we were basically all 14 to 20k effective with one another. So it got pretty bloody here at the end, but given that I know next to nothing about PLO, I'm just not going to talk through those hands. Thankfully, we survived the PLO round with most of our profit intact, and we headed out to the cage to cash out from one of the strangest and wildest sessions I've ever played.
Does anyone else feel like I should have titled this video, How to Make the Minimum When You Have the Effective Nuts? Because that's kind of how I feel. But all in all, I've been thinking about it a little more over these past couple days, and I can only hope that if my cards were somehow exposed, that someone would have the decency to let me know that it's just like a weird spot, an insane cooler spot, and I should probably go ahead and fold my hand. I think that it's a shame to lose EV in any spot, to lose real money in any spot, but you gotta look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, right? And that's how I feel. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the hands. If you are enjoying it, please like, subscribe, comment. It really does help. It helps me feel motivated, helps me feel like I can keep making these, like there's actual interest. So hope to see you next time. I'll see you around at WSOP. I'll be playing the 1500 Monster Stack, which is today, Saturday. See you around.